Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Tell Me Yours, a storytelling podcast with me, your host, Trey Everett. Hello and welcome to another episode of Tell Me Yours, a storytelling podcast with me, your host, Trey Everett. Super excited for my guest today. He's a great friend, a really talented songwriter. He's an audio engineer, a music producer, and he plays guitar and banjo for the indie Southern California folk band Moonlight Graham. Andrew Border is on the pod today with just a really incredible story about experiencing new things in foreign places. Very excited to get to it, so please welcome Andrew Border. Oh, hey, big guy.
What up?
How you doing, man?
This meeting's being recorded. Got it.
Yeah, it is, you big idiot.
Oh, Patreon members are gonna get some cat content, that's for sure.
Perfect.
Come on, bud.
Andrew, I am so excited for you to watch this Beatles documentary.
I know, dude. I'm also nervous.
So incredible. No, I'm honestly not worried about it being overhyped or anything like that.
No,
oh man,
I'm not nervous about that. I'm nervous about it like hitting me too hard because like when I watch that stuff,
yeah,
especially like even the is it the Ron Howard one, 8 Days a Week?
Yeah.
Even that one was like, it was great. I loved it.
Yeah,
it was just like a lot of feelings.
This one is worse.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
in that department.
That's what I'm worried about. That's what I'm worried about. So
okay, you're gonna tell me a story.
Yeah, I am.
I love it.
With a cat in the background.
Special Patreon only cat sightings.
Yeah, for those of you on Patreon, that is Cinder. And it's actually her gotcha day. We got her 3 years ago. For those of you not subscribed to this Patreon, you should, so you can see that cat.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
for that. And for the, I'm sure all the visual things that I've done or said so far or will do in the future that won't make sense.
It's so good.
So I'm going to tell you a story. When I was 15, the summer after my freshman year of college, my brother was graduating college, right? We went to college for 1 year together. Or not college, high school.
Okay. I was just like doing the quick math in my head and I was like, Jesus, were you in college at 15?
Super smart. No, so in high school, I was 15, summer after my freshman year of high school. My brother had just graduated. So we had just done 1 year of high school together. And for his graduation gift, he and a bunch of friends and their families were going to go on this cruise to the Mexican Riviera, which, if you're not familiar with that is, it's a number of cities along the western coast of Mexico. So like the Pacific side of Mexico. It was a 5-night cruise. I'd never been on a cruise before, but at that point I was 15. I didn't drive. I had very little agency over my life, right? As you do. So they're like, hey, we're going on a cruise for a week.
You're like,
sweet.
Okay. Yeah.
Tell me when I need to be packed, you know?
I love it.
So we went and it was cool. It was also really weird because I was hanging out with my brother and his friends, and they had one of their friends had a sibling, and she was 2 years older than I was, which at that age, like 15 to 17, it's a big enough age difference. It's like you wouldn't really hang out together, right? There's just too many life events between those 2 years. So it was weird because I was hanging out with my brother and his friends. They were all super close and joking and whatever. And I was just kind of there around the deep friendship bonding times.
Yeah.
I didn't know these people. I knew some of them.
Yeah.
But I didn't know, and I knew my brother, obviously, but we never really hung out in that setting very much. So it was just kind of weird, but it was a good time because people around me were having a good time. If you've never been on a cruise, there's these, you sail, sometimes it's sailing days where you're at sea and you're going to whatever the next port is.
Okay.
And then there's port days where you drop anchor and you can take ferries onto shore, and they have these excursions that you can book through the cruise line.
Like at the different cities? I've actually genuinely never been on a cruise.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, okay, so I want to say it was Mazatlan. This is one of the things that I just couldn't remember the story takes place. I think it was Mazatlan. I know it wasn't Cabo, and I know it wasn't Ensenada, which are like the two kind of ones that most people go to. So it wasn't those. So we all kind of booked this thing where we were going to go to this beach, and that was going to kind of be home base. So, and we were all going to do different things. So we were all like lining up. And again, if you've never been on a cruise, the way we got to shore is, you see those cruise ships off, like kind of off the coast. They're, I don't know, 600-700 yards off the coast, a decent ways. And then you get on these smaller boats. And the way you do that is they just kind of throw down this gangplank, and there's railings and whatever, but you walk onto this boat and you're on the sea, and it's, moving up and down. It just felt so weird to me, right? I was, again, 15 years old, hadn't experienced much of life yet, but it just felt weird to me. Like, there's a lot of old people around here. There's a lot of people who, like, so easily, it just felt so dangerous for something that I was sure happened all the time. How does a wave not just double up and just chuck one of these people over every once in a while?
Yeah.
And, if you've ever seen that, if you've ever been near one of these huge ships, whether it's a cruise ship or if you've been to like a military base and these huge things floating in the water, it just feels so unnatural. And then the idea of being in the water next to that is so terrifying to me, maybe to other people too. So it was just like, as soon as I stepped off the boat, I felt uncomfortable.
Okay.
So we got off, and I think this was one of our first stops. So this was my first time ever being outside of the country.
Okay.
So we're going into Mexico, which to me felt like a really big deal. I was like, whoa, a foreign country. This is weird. I don't know, just a little nervous. Again, 15-year-old kid. So we go, and we kind of dock the ferry. Everybody gets off. We're all together. There's maybe 15 of us there, kind of between my brother and his friends and me and the families and whatever. And then we get on these, you've probably seen them if you've been to San Diego or Miami has them, these like kind of open air trucks where they kind of put you all in the back, and there's seats, and there's like an awning over it. They're like bench style seats where you all kind of sit there and you're like bouncing around. And so that's what we took into town, and they sold beer on these things. My dad buys a Corona. They crack it open for him, and they give it to him, and he's sipping on it. We're just sitting there kind of talking, looking. It's on the shore. It's beautiful. We're like heading into town, and he looks at me and is like, "You want to try this?" And he holds up the beer. And I was like, wow, like Mexico's wild. Like, even my dad doesn't care. And looking back on it, I'm like, oh, well, of course, he wanted my first taste of alcohol to be like under a supervised thing, right? He wanted to know if there was going to be trouble or not. If I was like, if I downed the whole thing and was like, that was delicious. But, so it was like this big moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it just like came up. I was like so unprepared for it. Just that idea of tasting something that you've never tasted and that you have no idea what it's going to taste like is just such a rare experience. And that is kind of one of the few things. And I tasted it and I hated it. It was awful. I was like, this is not at all what I expected. Because you watch those commercials when you're sitting at some pizza joint or whatever, and you see the animation of the beer pouring, and it like splashes and sloshes around this golden, nectar. You're like, man, it must be good. It must be so good. And I had it at 15, and I was like, this is awful. No, and he was like, what do you think? I was like, I don't like this at all. He's like, okay, that's a relief. Right. I was like, wow, I was like conscious of it. I thought, I just had a life event here on this open air, like lorry with all these other people. I just had my first sip of beer. Wow, life experience. I'll check it off in the book. Yeah, cool. Ding. Yeah, neat. So we get into town, and they kind of have this station where they drop you off the edge of town. So you have to walk past all the shops and hopefully buy stuff and whatever. So they drop us off, and we're heading back, and we're all walking, and I'm just kind of looking around thinking, Mexico, this is a different country. Yeah. What's it going to be like? And I was like, wow, it kind of looks, hey, they got a pharmacy there, and here's some shops with clothes. Here's a grocery store. Here's all this stuff. It's like, oh, this isn't so different. I honestly didn't even notice that everyone spoke Spanish. Everyone was speaking Spanish, because living in Southern California, especially growing up in La Habra, like that wasn't, you Spanish all the time.
Yeah.
It wasn't remarkable, but it was just that I was cognizant of the fact that like, this is not even their first language, but like, this is the national language, right? It's all these different things. It's just weird. Again, thoughts of a 15-year-old. So we're walking down there. I see these guys like painting a storefront. They're up on this ladder, and there's two of them, and they're painting. And they're painting this like nice like brilliant white, and they're like going to start doing some lettering and stuff. And we walk past them, and then I hear just this super loud scrape of like metal on cement. Just this super loud scrape, and then a smack or like a snap. Everybody kind of turns around, and the ladder had slid out, right? It was leaning against the storefront, and the guy was painting, and the bottom feet had slid out. And so this guy had fallen at least 12 feet onto this concrete. And so everybody kind of just held their breath, and he kind of got up and went back, right? He was laying on his side.
Okay.
And like went to get up. And when when you get up, you kind of put your hand behind you a little bit to get up, and his forearm just folded in half.
Oh my gosh.
And it was like so clear that he had just broken clean into his arm, and he kind of like propped himself up against the storefront, and his buddy, who was kind of taking a break, just like handed him a beer. And he took it, and he took a big old drink of it. And I was like, that's wild. In my stupid mind at the time, I was like, wow, they can't call an ambulance because we're in Mexico, and I'm a 15-year-old idiot, and I don't know. But that's what I thought at the time, right? It left this impression on me. So a lot of things in the story are going to be me like showing what an idiot I was at the time.
I love it. But I mean, at the time, you're not an idiot, though. At the time, you're just a 15-year-old kid who doesn't know.
How would I know? Like, you wouldn't hand someone a beer. You'd call an ambulance.
You call an ambulance.
And I was like, well, he would have done that. Otherwise, if he must not be able to. That's the only reason that you wouldn't call an ambulance when your coworker breaks his arm like that. And I'd never seen anything like that. That was like one of the most graphic things I'd ever seen in my life. See this dude's arm fold in half in real life.
Oh my gosh.
That was wild. We're going to continue on to the beach and have our fun day as cruise passengers while this guy has like really hurt himself. So we go, and we get to the beach, and everybody sets up, and we're cool. We're chilling. And then people kind of go out. One of the things that we had signed up to do was my brother and I were going to go ride jet skis out you could do ocean jet skis, which if you've never done, super fun. It's so much different than riding a jet ski in a lake because you really get to feel the ocean, because really you only experience the ocean. Even if you're a surfer, even if you spend a ton of time in the ocean, you really only get to experience the first 15, 20 yards of the ocean.
Yeah.
Maybe 30, 40 out there, if it's depending on where the break is. But in a jet ski, you're going way out there. And you're going beyond the breaking waves, and you get to see where those waves come from. And that was a really interesting thing for me, because I expected it to be flat, because we were just on a cruise ship and it looks flat.
Yeah.
But when you're riding these jet skis out there, you see that there's these troughs and these peaks, and you can see like these are going to be the waves that are coming in. And the fact that it just I couldn't explain it at the time, but I realized that I'm the first person to see these waves. They're going to see them when they get into the shore. They're going to come up on the shore, but I'm seeing them now, and they're here. And that mixed with the idea of like, that was out there on that jet ski, because what you want to do is you want to get your speed just right so that you can kind of ride them. Because if you speed up or slow down too much, and you just like slap the bottom of your jet ski on one of those peaks, it'll knock your teeth loose. It's so jarring. So just that idea of like kind of becoming harmonized with this natural thing that's happening, and then if you mess it up, you can hurt yourself. That was the first time I had ever experienced that, really, and seen it like demonstrated in this way. I'm on this very unnatural thing, this jet ski, and even still, these waves that are breaking, like I can still hurt myself. I almost sprained my wrist with how hard I hit one of these troughs with the bottom of this jet ski. I was like, oh, I have to be careful out here, even with this. And just the idea of seeing it like that really cemented in my mind the idea of why we call it a wave, which sounds like a bong rip college dorm thought. Oh man, that's why we call it a wave. But you see it, and for me, someone who has been an audio engineer for a long time, working with waveforms is something that I do all the time. and seeing it like that and thinking, oh, it's just energy moving through the water, creating these waves, the same way that energy moves through the air and creates waves that we can't see that hits our ears. These are at a certain frequency, and when you can kind of get in line with that frequency, you're in harmony with it, and you can ride it. It's good. But if you get out of harmony with that, it can cause pain. The same way that it can with your ear. If you hear these really loud, dissonant noises, it's like unpleasant. You can hurt your ears from that.
Yeah.
So just kind of realizing that, right? So I'm taking in a lot as a 15-year-old kid in this day. There's a lot that's going on. My head is spinning at this point. I had my first beer, saw a dude snap his arm in half. I had this like celestial moment on a water on a jet ski. Right? I'm learning a lot. This is interesting. I'm learning a lot. So that ends, and we kind of get back in, and everybody asks, "Oh, how was it out there? Was it fun?" Here's me. I've had this like religious moment. I'm like, "Oh, it's cool. It's cool. It's fun. It's cool. Thank you. Yeah, it's good."
You're back to being a cool 15-year-old.
No, but I just, at the time, I didn't know how to share.
Yeah.
What I had experienced. I didn't even really know what I experienced. I was still processing it.
Yeah.
But so we're chilling. We're on the beach. They're like, "Oh, you want to go out in the water?" It's like, "Nah, I'm good. I was just out there. I'm just gonna kind of sit and hang out." And then so some of the people went into the water, and I see this guy walking out. And he was a guy, one of the older brothers from one of my brother's friends. And he's walking out. He's thigh deep into the water, and you just hear him like scream, and he just goes down, and he falls into the water. And the beach was pretty empty, but everybody got up and looked at him. And my first thought was, he just got bit by a shark. This day is wild. He just got bit by a shark. What? Mexico is wild. But then he comes back up, and he starts waving for one of like kind of the patriarch, if you will, of the group, the guy who had kind of been on the most cruises. His family had been on a ton of cruises. They'd been there. And so his name was Xavier, and everybody just called him X. So this guy comes back up from where he's like, X, get out here, I need you. And he calls me and my brother, because we're the two other kind of biggest guys there. We run out there and we carry him in, and he's bleeding from his foot. And I'm like, oh, this dude just cut himself on a rock. He stepped on a rock and cut himself, because there was coral and stuff. For sure, yeah. We get there, this guy, Xavier, like he pulls his foot up, and I see there's these 3 like spines sticking out of this guy's foot. And he steps on a sea urchin.
Oh, wow.
Right, because there's coral out there. There's all sorts of, you can go snorkeling out there. Like, that's what he was going out to do. And he stepped on a sea urchin. We don't know if, my understanding, again, as a 15-year-old kid, was like, these things are venomous. We need to do something. We can't just hand him a beer and he'll be okay. We need to call an ambulance. But what do we do? Luckily, the adults were much calmer than that, and so he had tweezers and started like plucking these spines out. It was rough. It didn't look fun.
Yeah,
to having sea urchin spines taken out of your foot. But his foot's bleeding, and we're like, that's it, man. That's a wrap on the day. We got to get out of here before someone else goes down. So we head back to the boat. We get on the boat, and like, I'm gonna take a pause here. It's just so interesting growing up less than 200 miles from Mexico in a state of California that used to be Mexico, and just feeling like it was so foreign, right? Even though my eyes were telling me this is so similar to where you're from.
Yeah.
But being told and learning that, like, oh, Mexico is different, man. This country is different. It's dangerous. That's just such an interesting thought to me. Where now, like, one of the top places I want to go, I can't wait to go to Mexico City. That's like one of my places that I cannot wait to go to. And that's me, this kid who grew up in Southern California. How difficult must it be for people in the Midwest, the East, to unlearn these things that they're told about Mexico, and they're told about these other countries, right? I've been super lucky. I've been able to travel to over a dozen different countries, see how all these different types of people live. It's so much easier to just learn something from people that you've never heard about before, than it is to unlearn something about a people or a place that you've been told about, and then experience, because you cannot see it for what it is. You're going to see it how you've been kind of taught to see it, and you have to actively unlearn that. So we got out of Mexico, we went back on that cruise ship, and he went to the nurse, and I don't know what they did, but he was fine. They wrapped him up. They gave him some crutches.
They gave him the sea urchin anti-venom.
I guess. Yeah. I don't know what you do for that.
That's awesome.
So the night goes on, we all have dinner together. And then later that night we're chilling in one of these jacuzzis, and the international waters drinking age, I think it's 18. Which my brother and all his friends were. They just graduated high school. They were all 18, so they could drink. I was 15, but I've always looked older than I was. I was always asked what my order was going to be when the bartender, whoever was coming around taking drink orders. I always got asked what, and I was like, oh no, I can't do it. I can't drink. I'm 15. Like this bartender cares why I don't want to drink, but. So we're chilling, they're drinking, and I'm just, hanging out, having a good time. One of the girls, one of my brother's friends, her grandma had ordered like a tray of drinks for us, and there were pina coladas, strawberry coladas, whatever. And this tray of drinks comes over, and they got the like flashing lights, like straws in them, and it's this abomination, practically just a Slurpee with probably like a shot or two of generic alcohol in it. And so the tray's going around, and everybody's taking one, and it gets to me, right? I'm feeling bold at this moment. I had my first sip of beer already. Am I going to do this? And so I look at the tray, and then I look across the jacuzzi at my brother, and I was asking him, I'm like, are you cool if I do this? And he just kind of shrugged his shoulders at me and like nodded. Like, you never seen a 15-year-old swipe a drink off a tray that fast. I was like, oh man, this is wild. Like,
got the nod of approval.
I'm becoming so worldly with my 4 hours in Mexico and my 2 alcoholic beverages in one day. I'm a changed man.
I love it.
And everybody's like, ooh, Andrew, the kid, 15, he's drinking. They're like, do you feel it? Do you feel it? I was like, I don't know what to feel. I can tell you in hindsight, no. I'm sure there was like maybe an ounce of alcohol in those drinks, and like they were 16-ounce sugar rushes is essentially what they were. But I was like, I don't know. It's tasty. I like this better than that Corona my dad gave me, earlier today. We're chilling. I'm like, I have opportunities to have more, but I was like, I don't know. Doesn't feel right. I don't want to push my luck. So we start, right. A lot of cruise ships, this one did, and I've seen it on other ones too, where there's like a track around the top deck for people if they want to run or if they just want to walk or whatever.
Cool.
Every once in a while, there'll be like a shuffleboard set up, because that's what you do on cruises. You drink and you play shuffleboard. So we were walking around, and it was pretty late. It was probably it was after midnight for sure, but we're walking around this top deck, and it's dark, and we had set sail, so we're out in the middle of the ocean. It's dark, the water is just black, and you can just see this trail of white behind the boat of the wake, and it's just this surreal thing. And I was just kind of standing there, kind of taking it all in. There's stars, it's the ocean, just the sound of the boat, and you're on this massive moving thing. And so I'm kind of having another one of these moments, which is then cut short by one of my brother's jackass friends starts just like screeching and doing cartwheels on the top deck because they've been drinking all night. And I was like, man, what a jackass. And then he keeps doing these cartwheels. He'll like skip a couple times, do a cartwheel, skip a couple times, do a cartwheel, and we're on the top deck of this cruise ship.
Yeah.
And there's a railing on the top of the cruise ship, but it's like waist high. Like this dude could cartwheel, in my mind, it's like he could cartwheel right off that top deck.
Yeah.
And what do we do? What do we do then? Right? It's not something, and so I just got this sense of dread. The sense of dread came over me, and it was that same feeling that I felt at the beginning of the day, of like, this is dangerous. How do people not? How are people not just falling off this daily?
Yeah.
Like, right? Every morning at breakfast, I feel like there should be a list of a couple names. Sorry, these people fell off the top deck. We don't know where they went.
Condolences to them and theirs.
Our condolences. You'll get a $300 buffet voucher. Sorry. Because I'm like, these are kids. I'm like, I've seen people way more drunk than this guy is on this trip. How does this not happen more? And so I was like, I'm out. I can't hang out with you guys anymore. I can't watch this. I hope he makes it. I hope he doesn't cartwheel right off. I've always, for a long time, I've had this. I always imagine the worst thing possible. That's why I was never a good skateboarder. My brother and I both were skateboarders. Yeah. We skated a lot as kids, and I was always held back by fear, because whenever I was about to go for something, I always pictured like, what's the worst thing that could happen? And I was trying to prepare myself to make sure that didn't happen.
Totally.
But you can't do that without imagining it first and being like, well, it's still on the table. It's still possible that could happen. Despite your best efforts, that's still possible. Yeah, so I was like, this guy tumbles off. He tumbles off the top deck. Maybe he hits something on the way down. Best case scenario, he slaps down in that water, which from that height is still very dangerous.
100%.
And then I don't know if you knew this, and I don't know where I learned it as a kid, but a lot of kids that I know learned somewhere that if you are in the water next to a big ship, that it's going to suck you right under. Did you?
Yeah, I remember
where did you learn that?
I have no idea, but I remember learning it. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know where we learned that either, but like, it must have been in a movie. It must have been in a movie somewhere where that happened.
Yeah, it's gotta be.
And what happens is you get sucked under that boat and there's these big propellers.
Yes.
And so that's what's happening to him. And then from our perspective, if that happens, we're all standing on the top deck of this cruise ship, and we've gone from having a good time watching this jackass do cartwheels to seeing someone just disappear over the edge. Yes. And there is nothing we can do about it.
Yeah.
I don't want to be here for that.
Yeah.
That happens. I don't want to be here for it. You tell me about it at breakfast, but I don't want to be here for it.
Yeah. I'll see your name on the card tomorrow morning.
Yeah. I'll see them slap that $300 buffet voucher down at your family's table. And it was just weird to like begin and end the day with those feelings of like danger. But then thinking back on it, I was like, those are the times that I felt the most unsafe. Again, thinking about like unlearning, growing up as a kid and thinking about Mexico as this dangerous place. You're taught to be like, to fear, it's very dangerous, and gangs and whatever. As if we don't have gangs here, as if there aren't gangs in every major city in the world.
Yeah.
But like, because they speak a different language, whatever. Or it was the times I felt the most unsafe were on that cruise ship. And thinking back, it was just such an odd experience to have, feeling like that. And I don't know why. I mean, it was a wild day for sure. I that every once in a while, that different pieces of that day, of that story, will just crop up in my mind. Or I'll see or I'll hear things. It could be something from like seeing somebody painting something, on a sidewalk on a ladder. And I just remember that sound of that metal scraping and that crack and snap sound. Or you're like, I'm watching that movie Surf's Up.
Is it that animated
man, it's got to be. Yeah, it's got to be like 10 years old.
Yeah.
And it's like these surfing penguins.
Yeah,
it's these like surfing penguins. And one of the penguins steps on a sea urchin.
No
and he's
way.
Like, and he steps on a sea urchin, and they're like bringing him in. He's like, oh no, I got these like poison things. And they're like, what happened? He's like, I stepped on a sea urchin. And then it like hard cuts to an interview with a sea urchin. And he's like, stepped on me. The guy was dancing on me. Look at this. Gone, broken, gone. And even something like as stupid and silly as that would be like, no, that's serious. Stepping on a sea urchin is a serious thing. Like, that's this guy up.
That's amazing.
So it's just all these different things that like just bring me back to that story, and makes me so grateful to have experienced something like that at such a young age. Because like, what if I hadn't had that experience to look back on? Right. And that was not, that was a day in Mexico. And obviously these are like tourist ports. So it's like these people are here working. Most of them are in like the tourist industry. So you're not like seeing life, in this place. Yeah. And I've been lucky enough to travel places where you do see that, where you're not in a major city and you're not in these places. And you do get to just see these people living their lives, and you get to live their life with them, and you get to take part in that if you're lucky enough and be welcomed into that. But I always think about like, what if that hadn't happened at such a young age, at 15? What if I went on carrying those fears, carrying those ideas about this other place, about this other people? They would have only set in more, and it would have been harder to unlearn them.
Yeah, totally.
And I guess really, like, for me, what this kind of, these memories, what this day does is it reminds me that like traveling honestly is important. And I guess what I mean by like traveling honestly is traveling to a place and trying to live there like the people who are from there live there, not going to it as like a theme park or as like an attraction.
Yeah.
Which is easy to do, right? Emily and I went to Paris, and this is, you can pick them out. They're usually Americans. Sometimes they're from the UK, but they look like, you can put that family from, the Midwest at Disneyland for the first time next to that family of Americans in Paris for the first time. And sometimes they look exactly the same.
Yeah.
And they shouldn't. They shouldn't look like that.
Yeah.
So traveling honestly to me is trying to see and feel and experience and not insert yourself into that. And because I think in that Mexico trip, because I was so uncomfortable with my brother's friends, my friends weren't there. I was kind of on the outside.
Yeah.
I was already laying low, and I was already kind of just feeling things out and observing. So I didn't have all these distractions. So I could just watch and take things in. And not that I was this, all-knowing, observant kid, right? Because a lot of the observations I made and the conclusions that I came to from those observations were totally wrong.
For sure. Yeah.
Right?
For sure.
Of course they have ambulances in Mexico. Of course that, like, So that's just like a good reminder of that. Like every time you see someone doing something or you experience something culturally, you're like, that's weird. It's like, no. It's just different.
Yeah. People
have learned to get by all over the world. They have a way to do it. You just may not understand it yet.
Yeah.
And that's like traveling honestly, trying to figure that out.
Yeah, totally.
What is that way that you do that?
I love that. I think I agree with you. Even just the intention behind saying like, I don't just want to visit that city, I want to experience that city.
Yeah.
I think that's huge. I am still laughing at the idea of you having this guy step on a sea urchin. You're like, Dad, quick, give me a Corona. Yeah. Because you're like, what do we do? Dad, give me a Corona.
Yeah. I don't know. Someone get him a beer. That's apparently, to me, this dumb 15-year-old kid, that's the only medical care they have here is a bottle of beer.
Is so funny. Just the idea.
Yeah, man.
Like, what do we do? Dad, give me a beer.
Yeah. It's just, it was wild. So yeah, that's my meandering story.
I love that, man. Thank you so much for sharing that. You're the best.
Appreciate it, man.
I'll see you soon. Thanks, brother. I appreciate it.
Got one of these coming your way.
Yeah.
All
right. See you, man.
All right. Later.
Thank you so much again for listening to today's episode of Tell Me Yours. If you want to follow Andrew's band Moonlight Graham on most social medias, they are just at Moonlight Graham Music, or you can look up Moonlight Graham on Spotify to stream their catalog. If you want to follow us, Twitter and Instagram at Tell Me Yours Pod. And then if you subscribe to our Patreon, you'll get some extra time with Andrew. You'll get some FaceTime with his cats like we joke about. But just a really, really great conversation. Thank you so much to Andrew for having it. Once again, patreon.com/tellmeyours. And until next week, be kind to each other, and we'll talk soon.